in this session now. So, good morning, everyone. Myself, Anju Joseph, third year electronics and communication student from Model Engineering College, and I will be your host for the day. As all of us know, today Mixed Signals will be conducting the webinar on PCB designing using KiCad. All of us know that nowadays PCB designing is one of the sought after skills when it comes to electronics. So we have planned an insightful session for all of you, which will really help you to survive in this competitive industry. Now, I would like to extend my heartiest welcome to you, Samyukta Chichi. Samyukta Chichi is a fourth year in electronics and communication from Model Engineering College. So we have the right person with the right experiences to take us through this webinar. A very warm welcome to you, Chichi.
Thank you, Anju. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I welcome you all to this session. So, before I get started, I thought I'll ask everyone whether anyone knows what a
Chichi,
PCB.
okay, Chichi. Just a minute. Let me also introduce the participants as well. Then we'll get started.
Yeah,
Thank you,
sure.
Chichi. Thank you so much. So I would also like to extend my heart welcome to all the participants to this much awaited session. I believe most of the participants are from Model Engineering College itself, that is mostly from first year and second year. So a very warm welcome to all of you from Mixed Signals. Hope you guys have a wonderful session. With that, I think let's get started. Samyukta Chichi, I would like to hand over the session to you now.
Okay, thank you, Anju.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Chichi.
Hope my screen is visible to everyone. Is it? Is it visible to everyone? Hello. Okay. Yeah, before we get started, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar on PCB designing using KiCad. So let me just begin by asking whether you guys are actually familiar with the PCB, like have you ever worked on it or have you ever seen one or anything? Could any one of you please respond?
Yes, we have seen one.
Abid Ali says yes.
Okay. So, yeah. So, we all know the PCB is actually an acronym that stands for Printed Circuit Board. And this would be a typical example of a PCB, just in case if anyone is not familiar with it. Like when you must have seen it somewhere at some point of your life, right? Whether you're working with a computer or something, you must have seen this green card where components are placed on it, and then they would be having these tracks marked on it and all that, right? So that is actually a printed circuit board. And if you want to define a circuit board, you can say it is as a board that electrically connects and mechanically supports the components, and these connections are made with the help of in conductive tracks or paths. Now coming to the question, like why were these PCBs invented? So before PCBs are actually introduced, people used to use a technique called wire wrapping. And this is an example of wire wrapping technique. So as you can see from the image itself, it looks really complicated, right? It's such a labor intensive job to create such a huge circuit with just wires. And then also there's a high possibility that it could lead to electric short circuits, right, using such a big technique. So that was the reason why people decided to uh, find a solution for this problem, and as a result PCBs were invented. Okay. Now, coming to a typical structure of a PCB, this would be if you take the cross section of a printed circuit board, this is how it would look like. So here you can see that this yellow colored portion, that is a substrate. It is a rigid or semi-rigid substance that holds the whole circuit together, and it is usually made with fiberglass. And this fiberglass has a fire resistance of grade 4. That's an industrial standard, and most of these fiberglasses would be having this fire resistance of grade 4. and usually we refer it to as FR4. And on the substrate, what we do is we press a thin layer of copper on it, and then we drill holes on this substrate. And these holes are also electroplated with copper. Okay. Now, after that, what we do is we draw the traces of a circuit. So, traces just means connections within the circuit. So, we draw that on this copper plate, and then what we do is we remove the unwanted copper layers using the etching technique. Now, to add a layer of protection, what we do is we add the solder mask that you can see here in these green colored parts. Those are the solder masks. So that would keep away, that would provide a layer of protection on it. Now, if you want to give, write something on this PCB, for example, you must have seen, right? They would be mentioning the names of the components or perhaps the name of the manufacturer. We use a special ink to write on this PCB and we call that ink silk screen. So that is the typical structure of a PCB. Now coming to the different types of PCB, there are different forms of PCBs available in the market, and you can classify these PCBs based on two major classifications. One is based on how many layers a PCB has, and the other one is on the basis of how you're placing the component on the PCB. So, coming to the layered PCBs, you must have seen the single layered PCBs, right? For example, I think most of the second years and third years and fourth years would be familiar with it. Like during your first year labs, you had a solder practice session, and during that, we used to have the soldering practice on a PCB, right? And that is an example of a single layered PCB where you'll be just keeping the components on one side and then the other side would be having the conductor tracks. So in this image, I have shown you a multi-layered PCB. So that means you can draw the connections on several layers within the board. So why we use such a multi-layered PCB is because it's actually physically impossible to make all the connections on one side, especially when you're dealing with a huge circuit. Because unlike in paper where we can cross the wires, we can just put a loop to show that they do not have an interconnection. That's not quite possible when you're working on a board, right? So that's the reason why we go for multiple layers so that you can draw some of the tracks on one side and then draw the other tracks on the other layers. And to give you an example of a multi-layered PCB, that would be a Raspberry Pi board. You must have seen a Raspberry Pi board, right? Or any of the boards that you can see. That is, for example, the PCBs in your mobile phone or in the computer, washing machine, all that. All those are examples of multi-layered boards. And to, there are also other kinds of layers like two-layer boards, six-layer boards, etc. Now, coming to the classification based on how we are placing the component, first we have the surface mount technology. So this is an example of a surface mount technology, and you can see that the board looks as if the components are pasted on the board, right? That is, the leads are not actually coming out through the board. They're quite flat and they look as if we have pasted them on the board. So, looking at the manufacturing point of view, SMDs are quite easy to manufacture, especially for mass production. But the major disadvantage that these boards have is that it's quite hard to solder these components on it. Since they do not have much leads coming out through these components, it's quite difficult to solder these components by hand. So that's one major disadvantage that they have. So as a result, we have another type that is the through-hole technology. And in the through-hole technology, what you can see is that you can actually see the leads coming out to these components, right? And we are placing them through holes. There would be many holes drilled on the board, And through those leads, we're placing through those holes, we're placing the components on the board, and we'll solder them on the other side. So that is an example of a through hole printed circuit board. And today's session, we will be making a two-layered through-hole technology-based printed circuit board. So I hope everyone is following. If you have any doubt, you can raise your hand or just ask in the chat box. Feel free to interrupt me at times if you're not following it. So are you all fine right now? So can I continue? Okay, so to create a printed circuit board, what we usually do is we use a computer aided design software. And there are so many computer aided design softwares available. And for today's session, we will be using KiCad. And one major reason that I chose KiCad for this session was because it's an open source software and it is free to use. And also the methods that we're going to use in this software is quite universal, as in if you're quite familiar with KiCad, it's quite easy for you to switch to any other softwares such as Eagle, etc. So I'll first walk you through the basic steps. But don't worry, I know there are 8 steps, but don't worry, I'll be explaining in detail about all these steps. And right now, I'm just giving you a brief intro about all these steps so that you'll have you'll have a general idea what we're going to do today. So first, what we need to do is we need to design a circuit. And I hope all of you got the circuit that we would be working with today. And after that, what we need to do is we need to create symbols. And for that, KiCad has a feature called the library editor. So using that, we will be creating symbols. And then we will be creating a schematic capture using EE schema. So schematic is just uh, a sheet where you will be telling about how the components are connected and all that. And then after that, we'll create footprints using the footprint editor. So footprint is just a configuration of the holes and pads in the PCBs to show what are the mechanical and electrical connections. Then after that, we will be generating a netlist. So the netlist is just a text document that tells where the pins are connected electrically to which other pins. And then after that, we will do the board layout, that is place the components on the board and all that. Then after that, we'll do the production, that is generate the Gerber files. And these Gerber files are the files that you will be sending to the PCB manufacturers so that they will have an information about your board. And then finally, we'll generate a BOM. So the BOM is just the bill of materials that would be providing details about the components, like how many components are you using, then the specifications and all that. So, okay, now let's start with the session. So this is the circuit that we will be working with today. So this is just a 555 timer based circuit that will just flash to LEDs. And so for those of you who don't know, 555 is a very popular IC which is used by engineers. You can using this IC you can create a lot of circuits and it's quite easy to work with. And uh, within this 555, there are so many different types of different types. For example, when you check the internal circuitry of 555, you can see that it's made with transistors. But the IC that we're going to use today, it's called 7555, and it's a variation of the 555. Just that here, the internal circuitry will be having CMOS instead of transistors. And the major advantage that this will have is that it would use less power. So we can power the circuit with a 3.3 coin cell battery. So that's the reason why I chose this IC. And another major reason why I chose this circuit for today is that using this, we can cover almost all the major features that KiCad has to offer so that you'll have a good understanding of how to use the software. So let's get started. So I'm hoping that all of you have installed the software with you. Uh, and if you have any doubts, you can ask. Just let me see a few responses. All of you have installed this software, right? Uh, okay, now I'm going to start. So open your KiCad, and first, this will be your first page when you open KiCad. So I had already built the circuit, so as a result, you can see some of the 7555 details listed on the side, but in your case, it would be a blank file. So what you can do is go to File and go to New and create a new project. So then they'll be asking you to say this, create this new project somewhere in your PC. So what I suggest is you create a folder just for this project. For example, create a new file folder over there and name it. I'm going to just name it 755 for now. And then just save it. I'm not going to save it. You guys should save that file somewhere there. And then after that, what you need to do is go to the schematic layout editor. You'll be again redirected back to this project manager itself. So when you come back here, just click on the schematic capture, and then you will be shown such a sheet, which would look similar to your graphics paper. So yeah. Hope you guys can see the screen. So you will be redirected to such a page. I had already built the circuit. So in your case, it would be a blank page. So first, let's start off by filling out the sheet details. So to fill out the sheet details, what you need to do is go to edit page settings, which would be on the top toolbar. So just click on it and you need to fill out the details. So this schematic would be the sheet that you would be sharing with other engineers per se, and this would serve as a communication link with others. So we need to provide as much as information as possible through the sheet. So for that, you need to make sure that you have put the right dates, like when you started working on it. So to update the current date, just click on these arrows, then the new date would be shown there in the as part of the issue date. Now, a revision is just the version that you're working on. Because when you're working on a large project, there could be many corrections and then updates and all that, right? So to communicate that, you need how you have the revision part and then provide with a proper title for your circuit. And another thing to notice, you can also add comments to your page. That is, say who the author is, what the license is, or any other information that you wish the others must know about the circuit, you can provide it. And one thing to notice, KiCad prints these comments from bottom to top. So the comment 4 would appear on the top, comment 3 would be the second, and so on. So once you have filled all the necessary details, click OK, and you can see that it appears here on this right bottom, the name of the circuit and all that, it will appear over there. Now to create the circuit, what you need to do is on the right side, you can see that there's an option to place symbols. Click on it and your cursor would change into something that looks like a pen. And just click on somewhere on the sheet. And then such a pop-up window would appear on the screen. So when you check this two symbol pop-up window, you can see there are a lot of options are being shown here, such as device, diode, so many options are there, but when you check in yours, you can see that 7555 is not actually listed in that list. That is because its KeyCAD doesn't actually offer that IC for you. So that would mean that you need to create this symbol. So for that, what you can do is click cancel, and on the top toolbar, there would be an option to create, delete, and edit symbols. Click on it. Then you will be redirected to this symbol editor file. So whenever you're creating a new symbol, that is, if you're working with a really new IC that's it's not listed in KiCad, you need to create its symbols. And for that, first what you should do is you should create a library for it. Either you can add it to an existing library that KiCad already offers you, or you can create a new library for it. Since 7555 is a different IC, let's just create a new library in this case. And to create this new library, I suggest saving this library in the same folder that you had created earlier. In my case, I had saved it in the 7555 folder, and you can see that the 7555 library is listed here since I had already created it. So when you create a library, you'll see that it will be having a .lib extension for it. So name the file as 7555 and save it in your folder, project folder. And then when you come back to the symbol editor, you can see that the 7555 is still listed. Now to create a new symbol, just go to your file and click on new symbol. Sorry, one minute. So when you click on this in files new symbol, they'll ask you to select a library for your symbol. So just click on your 7555 library and click OK. And then you'll be having a pop-up window which will ask you to fill out the details regarding the symbol. So provide a symbol name as 7555, and underneath it you can see an option called default reference designator. So a reference designator is nothing but a set of letters that we use to denote components. So to know about the different reference designators, head over to Wikipedia and click on reference designator, and you can see that there's a huge list of letters that we use to denote several components, such as C for capacitors, R for resistor, and then when you go down, you can see that U stands for integrated circuit. So uh, provide this U itself. I just gave it a 755 because I had already created the symbol for 7555. That's the reason why. And you can see that your 755 and you would appear on the screen. Now to start making the symbol, what you need to do is just make sure that the layout looks a little comfortable to work with. Now to move these components, just hover over to this symbols part and click on the letter M to move it, and they'll ask you which one you need to move. So for now I'm moving the field value, and you can just place it somewhere on the screen, just keep it away, and then okay. Now to create this symbol, you must have an idea about the IC that you're working with. And for that, you must use the data sheet of this IC. So go just Google a data sheet for the 7555 And I'm taking the datasheet provided by Intercell because when I checked, they're the most popular among the ones among the manufacturers of 7555. And in that datasheet, you can see the pin configurations. So just note down the pin configurations of this IC, and yeah, once you do that, just respond in the chat box so that I can know that you guys are following. Uh, Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll repeat the last part. So, in the last part, what I just said was we need to create the symbol for this 755 IC in a KiCad because KiCad doesn't have this symbol already inbuilt in it. So, for that, we're using the symbol editor option. I hope that part you understood. So, when you come to the symbol editor, you need to create a new library for your 755. For that, go over to Files and click on New Library and save this new library in the same project folder that you had created earlier. So here you can see that a 7555.lib has been created. That's the extension for a library file. Once you have named your library, just click on Save, come back, and then in Files, click on New Symbols. Uh, and in your case, there would be another window asking you to select the library for this symbol. Provide a name for your symbol, that is 7555, and provide it with a reference designator and click OK. And then such an option, such, such a layout will appear on your screen, that is a 755, and a reference designator will appear on your screen. Now, to know how the symbol should look like, we must be familiar with the data sheet of the component. So for that, I'm using the data sheet for 7555, and I used the data sheet provided by Intercell because it's a quite popular manufacturer of this IC. And in that data sheet, you can see that they have listed out the pin configuration. So just take a note of this pin configuration, and then after that, come back to your symbol editor again. And now to place the pins of this IC, just click on Add Pins to the Symbol option and then click somewhere on the screen. And then you can see that such a pin properties pop-up window will appear. Then provide names for all these pins. For example, suppose input, uh, I'm not giving the valid name for now, just giving an example, that is input, and then give it a pin number and then select the electrical type. That is whether the signal would be going into the IC or out of the IC or whether it's bidirectional. Specify that and then just click OK. Now you can place this pin anywhere on your screen, and once you're satisfied with the position, just click on it again and to stay there. So in case if you want to move these pins, you can use the hotkeys, that is the letter M to move the pins and the letter R to rotate the pins. Then after that, now what we need to do is again other pins, just to click on other pins. You can see that in the data sheet, there are some of these inputs are active low inputs. So they need to be designated with a bar on top of the name, right? So to do that in KiCad, what you should do is in the symbol editor, put a tilde sign in front of the name, that is, for example, trigger, and then a bar would appear on top of the name. So that's how you provide with a bar for the names and do that. And once you, I didn't fill out the number. So once you have filled out all the pins, for example, this is the one that I had made for the 7555. You can see that I had placed the VCC on the top and the ground at the bottom. There is no general rule for that, but usually it's recommended to keep the VCC pin on the top and the ground at the bottom. Then to provide this box, once you're okay with the placement of the pins, you need to provide it with an outline. And for that, click on this Add Graphic Rectangle to your symbol body option and then just place somewhere on the screen. Like you can create a box like this. Just create a box for your symbol and then again place a reference designator and name near the symbol and that's it. You have finished creating your symbol. And then again click on save. I have saved it already, so just click on save in your case and then save your symbol and then come back to your EE schema. Now when you click on the place symbol option, you can see that your 7555 would be listed and then here you can see the symbol you had just created. I hope all of you got this part. Can I continue then? Can I continue explaining then? Okay. Okay, so coming back. Now to fill out the other components, when you click on R, for example, to add resistors, just select R, then you can see that R, there's a generic symbol provided. They have already provided this generic resistor symbol. Just click OK and then click your resistor somewhere on the screen. So when you add a new symbol to your schematic, you can see that this is how it would appear. That is, on the bottom it would be just R and on top of it there would be R with a question mark. So here what you can do is you can edit the properties of your resistor. So just hover over to the symbol and press the letter E and then such a pop-up window would appear. So let the reference remain as such. The reference is just for telling how many resistors or capacitors are there within the circuit, like R1, R2, R3 to denote that. You don't have to change it on your own. KiCad has a feature that will help you number it automatically. So don't change it for now and change the value R to the name of to the resistance value. Uh, Ohm cannot be listed on it, so just give the value 100K or 100 whatever that is. Just provide that value and then click OK, and then it will change. Now similarly, you can add other components. So when you click on capacitors, you can see that there are several different options. For example, this is just a generic capacitor and other one is this polarized capacitor. And even within the polarized capacitor, there are two options. One is this type of polarized capacitors or this type of polarized capacitors. I'm going to use the second one because this is the one that we normally draw in papers. So as a result, I'll be using this symbol. You are free to use the other one as well. And the reason why I chose the polarized capacitors instead of the generic capacitors is because today we're working with 100 microfarad and a 10 microfarad capacitors, and usually for such values of capacitors, we use the electrolytic capacitors and they are polarized ones. So that is, they would be having a positive terminal and a negative terminal. So we must have an idea about how to connect it properly, otherwise it could damage a circuit. So that's the reason why I'm using the polarized symbol in this case. So once you're satisfied with it, just click on place all these components. And for the transistor, I'm using the 2N3904 because that is a readily available transistor, which is quite cheap. And also you can buy, it's also small in size, so it wouldn't take up much space on our board. So that's the only reason why I chose the 2N3904. It's just a normal transistor. There's nothing special about this transistor. So then when you place the LED, you can see that LED has this symbol, that is D would be the reference designator and they'll be mentioning LED at the bottom. So yeah, I just kept an LED, but from the symbol itself you can understand that this is an LED because you have these arrows pointing out to the outside, right? So again, mentioning the name LED on top is quite redundant. So as a result, let's edit its properties, right? So click on it and change the value to the color of the LED because that would be providing you more information. So I just gave it the value red. So yeah, then it would change like this. Now to connect these components, what you need to do is on the right side, you can again see place wire option. Click on it and then come to this component's end. At the ends, you can see two dots, right? Come here and then click the letter W and then you can see that a wire comes out of it and then connect it to the other component. Ravi, yeah. And now these two are connected. So yeah, that's it. That's how you connect the components. So just connect all these parts as per the circuit diagram. And now to place the ground part, what you need to do is use the place power port option. Again, click somewhere on the screen, a pop-up window will appear. And here you can choose the power port that you want. So here right now I'm just taking a ground. Then select any one of the ground. I'm going to use the generic ground and click OK and then place the ground somewhere. So I suggest you keep some space between the component and the ground so that you would you would not make the mistake of not connecting it, because sometimes when you try to place the ground near the component, it might look as if they're connected, but they might not be actually connected, and it would lead to an error, and it would be hard to debug the circuit at a later stage. So connect these two parts. And now suppose you need to add a VCC. Just again click the power port symbol and then check VCC. Okay, we have just connected all this. Then when you come back to the, now we need to add the battery and switches. So when you check the place symbol option, you can see that the battery that KiCad provides us with does not really match the requirement. That is, I have mentioned we require a single coin cell battery, right? So these two wouldn't really be sufficient. So in those cases, that is, suppose KiCad doesn't have the type of components that you want, but in those cases, either you can create your own symbols like we just did for 7555, or you can externally download libraries. So in this case, I am going to use DigiKey's libraries. DigiKey is an electronic component manufacturer. They're quite popular and they also provide you with symbols that you can use within KiCad. So for that, head over to the github.com/dgkey website. I'll just place the link in the chat box. Chat box, hope that's available to everyone. So just head over to that link and then click on code and download the zip file. Just click on that zip file, then come back to your again EE schema. Then they'll ask you to so what you need to do is unzip that folder. Unzip that folder, and then you can see that they will be having library master file here. So click on that folder, just copy that whole folder, uh, and then come back to 755 folder again, the project folder that you've been working in, and paste it there. It might take some time to copy it because it's a quite a long, big folder. Create a new folder called libraries, and I suggest keeping it there because that would be easier to access. Just keep that folder here, and then you should come back to your KiCad. Now what you should do is click select with browser option, and then again you will be redirected to another page called the library symbol browser. Okay. Sorry, a small change in change. What should do is come back to your EE schema. Sorry, I got confused over there. Just come back to the EE schema and select this create, delete, and edit symbol option, which should be available on top of your screen. Just click it. Just follow the same path. That is, first you should download that zip file that I just mentioned, unzip it, and then copy that master folder, that is DigiKey Library master folder, and place it in a new folder called Libraries within your project folder. Then after you did that much, come back to your EE schema and click on your create, delete, and edit symbol option. And then again, you will be redirected to symbol editor window again. Then here what you should do is add new library option. Add library option within files, click on it, and they'll ask you to select which library you want. So in here, just select this library option and then click the DigiKey master folder. And here you'll be having three options available: dot pretty and DigiKey symbols. Take the symbols one, and then in that search for the one that you want. So what we want is the battery holder ones. Just click on it. So here, in this case, I'm just importing another one of these symbols just to make you understand how to do it. You should be selecting this one, that is the battery holder clips contact or lip. You should be importing that one. But right now, just for to make you show, just to show how to import it, I'm clicking another one and just click open, and another window will appear that is asking you whether to choose the library as global or project. Global means that when you, the library that you have just imported will be available throughout all your projects. Like when you choose another different project to work with, again that symbols will be available in KiCad. I'll only recommend you to do that when you're working with a large number of projects where you have to create so many circuits that are all interconnected. But when you're working with a small project like right now, I'll suggest you click the project option itself and click OK. And then when you check your libraries files, you can see that it is mentioned here. Like for example, I had just uh, imported the DK barrel power connectors. Click on it and they'll provide you with the options that are available. So you guys had imported the battery holder, right? So just click on that library and you can see that two options will be available. That is BC91 and the BS7. Take the BS7 and this looks something that we can actually work with. This battery holder looks okay with a coin cell battery. So if you're fine with the symbol that you just imported, again click on save. Then just come back to your EE schema, and then when you click on this symbols option, you can see that the ones that you had just imported is available. That is BS7 is available within the choose symbol option. So click OK. And similarly, the slide switch that I had mentioned within the circuit, that also wouldn't be available within KiCad. So again, do the same thing, that is create, delete, and edit symbol option again. And then here, come to files, add library, you don't add library, and then go to the DigiKey symbols folder, and then click the slide switch. That would be available. Slide switches.lib. Just click on it and import it again. And when you click on it, you can see that there are two options. Take the EG1218. This is the slide switch. Import it, and then when you come back to your EE schema, you can place that component here. You can just this switch. You can just import it, place it, and then just complete the connections. Hope everyone is able to follow what I said until now. Just can someone respond to the chat? Like, are you guys following? Okay.
Chechi, if you want to take a water break or something, you can take
Okay.
a
Okay.
5 minute break or something so that the audience also feel refreshed.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. Samyukta Chechi, do you have any tips or suggestions for the audience in general, like anything that you want to speak right now about how to take up PCP designing to a greater
Uh,
level?
So for PCB designing, there are a lot of steps involved. Like I hope you guys felt like that. Like there are so many options available within KiCad itself. Like you need to jump from one side to another by working on it. So at first it might feel a little confusing, but don't worry. As you build a one or two PCBs, it should be quite thorough. With you, it would be quite thorough. But don't worry about it. At first, it might be a little intimidating, but with practice, it will be fine. So I hope I can resume the session since
Yeah,
we are on
sure.
a 1 hour is over. So let me just.
Okay,
Uh,
Chechi, continue.
yeah. So another option that KiCad provides us is the labels option. So labels option becomes more useful when you're working with a large IC. For example, suppose you're working with a 30-pin IC, it's quite impossible to make all the connections on the schematic because there would be so many wires that you can actually get confused. And like I said, you're sharing the schematic with other people to work with. So it would be hard to understand where each wire goes and all that. And there could also be possibilities of uh, wrong connections. So in that case, what you can do is you can use the symbol, this place global label option. And just I'm just giving NC, click OK, and place the label somewhere. Since this 5 pin doesn't have any connections, I thought we'll keep it here. Now what the labels does is, suppose I'm providing this label somewhere else. Suppose say instead of instead of VCC, I'm providing here another label that is NC again. NC again. What KiCad does is it will automatically connect these two parts. That is, you don't need to connect it using a wire. KiCad automatically assumes that these two parts are connected, and then that would make the connections much easier for the person as well as easier to understand. So that is another option that KiCad provides you with. Since we are dealing with a really small circuit, we are not going to use labels today. I just showed it so that you guys can understand. So once you have finished drawing the schematic, pat yourself in the back because we are halfway through creating a PCB. This is one of the major portions of building an PCB. So you're halfway through. Now what we need to do is we need to follow these 5 steps provided here, all these steps. So next what we need to do is we need to annotate the schematic symbols. So annotate means you just providing these S1, B1, R1, all that. So just click on it. And KiCad usually follows the procedure that it annotates from bottom to top and from left to right. So in case you want to change that order, you have that option. And all the other options keep it as such. You don't need to worry about use the current page option and all that. All these comes into picture when you're working with more than one schematic at a time. So once you finish schematic, just finish it. No. Okay, we have finished annotating schematic, then just save the file. I recommend saving it from time to time because in case if your software crashes or something, you would not lose your of this files. So next what we need to do is we need to create footprints. So like I mentioned, footprints are files that tells the manufacturer where the hole should be for the components to be connected. So since we had created the symbol from scratch, like we are the ones who created the symbol, right? So KiCad wouldn't be having the footprint associated with the symbol. So we need to already create it. So head over to this footprint editor. That option would be looking like a IC with green pins. Just click on it. To take some time to load, and then you will be redirected to this footprint editor window. So here what you should do is first go to files, create a new library just like you did earlier for creating the symbols. So in the 7555 folder, create a file name, and usually what these footprint files will be having an extension called .pretty. So I click on save. I'm not saving it because I had already created it. I just named it the 7555 pads. That's the name I had provided for it. And then once you save it, you can see that in your libraries, the new library that you have just created will be appearing. And we click on it, that will be empty. Then in this, add a new footprint option. They'll ask you to enter a footprint name. So for the footprint name, I suggest you name it according to the manufacturer that you're using. So since like I mentioned, I was using the Indus Cells IC, I'm going to name it the ICM7555 PDIP. So why I named it as PDIP is because it means plastic dual inline. Dual inline means this is how the IC would look like from the top. A dual inline plastic package IC would look like this in top. And to create the footprints, you must use the data sheet as a component because the placement of the parts and all that while creating the footprints require that you must be using the data sheet as reference. So again, come back to this footprint editor provided with the name. So like I said, I gave it the ICM555 PDIP, save it, and they'll ask you preferences. Just click on it. Mhm. Yeah, just again, just come back to this footprint editor. Then click like this is how a typical footprint would look like. Now to create such a footprint, what we should do is, as you can see in this data sheet, they have provided you with certain measurements. That is here, they're telling us that how much width we should make. So that is the maximum width of the pin. All this has been mentioned here. Like for example, you can see that in this diagram they're telling us how much each pin must have in between each other. That is the width each pins must have between each other. Then how much must be the width of one pin. All that has been mentioned in this diagram, and they have provided you with the maximum values in this table. So you can see that the measurements are either in inches or in millimeters. Okay, so to know which uh, system you must use, that is whether to follow the inches or millimeters. uh, Usually most PCB manufacturers tend to follow the imperial system. So that is, they would be providing their measurements within inches. So click on the inches option within the toolbar, and also note, if you're working with surface mount components, they're usually done in millimeters. Since we are working with a through hole technology based component, click on inches. And also please note that uh, now onwards, when I say mils, I'm referring to 1/1000th of an inch. That is another standard unit that we use in PCB manufacturing. That is, mils stands for 1/1000th of an inch. So again, now head back to the data sheet and note down the values. That is uh, E, which is the distance between the two pins. They have said it's zero point 0.1 and maximum is 2 mils. All this they have mentioned here. Just note all this. I had just summarized all that within this image. You guys can just take it down. Uh, Note down this image. So can I just continue? Yeah, can I continue? So again, come back to footprint editor. Now to place these components, what we should do is, Click on place add pad option, just click on it and then place somewhere on the screen and then just a small pad will appear on the screen, that is an yellow colored annular ring will appear on the screen. Now to edit this, click on hover over to this pad and click on E. And now they'll ask you to provide certain uh, properties of this. That is the pad number and what the pad type is, whether it's a through hole or SMD, all that they'll ask you. Provide all those details and the shape of it. The shape can vary. For example, some of the ICs may have oval shaped leads or rectangular shaped leads and all that. So click on select those options and the positions are basically you must use a little bit of math for it. For example, like I mentioned is in this image, I have provided you with all the pin coordinates for now. Just keep in mind that next time when you're working with another component, make sure that you are placing the pads with reference to the origin. You can see this is the origin, right? So just place the symbols as per these coordinates. And another thing to note in KiCad is the x is positive towards the right, whereas y is positive towards the bottom. So that's another thing that you must keep in mind. So from the origin, when you check, you can see that this first pin would be coming at a position that is mentioned at the bottom. So here you can see the x and y coordinates listed. That is, when you hover over to pin 1, you can see that the x coordinate of it is minus 0.15 and the y coordinate is positive 1.5. So that's how we provide the coordinates for all these components. Then again, click on E. We have some more properties to fill out. And another thing is the hole size, 30 mils. That is also mentioned within the data sheet. That is also mentioned within the data sheet, like how much should be the pin width and all that. So here I'm just taking 30 mils to be the size of the pin. So I gave this hole size is 30 mils and then the size of the whole complete portion, that is the complete pad, that would be 30 mils. Why I gave a 15 mils gap on each side is because it should be little wide. Even though the whole size is just 30 mils, why I took the entire pad size to be 30 is so that when you're placing the soldering pins tip, there is sufficient space around the lead so that you can pour optimum amount of solder within that location. So that is the reason why I took the whole size as 30 and the size of the entire pad as 60. So after that, click OK and then place the pad in the optimum position locations. Okay, now to draw these boxes, what you should do is click on this add graphic line option and this draw a line somewhere on the screen. Just draw a line. And another thing to notice, here you can see that right now the line that is shown is light green color. That would mean that the line that you just drawn would be appearing as a F silk layer. That is, this will be a silk screen for the board. A silk screen that appears in the front layer. That is what this means. So when you make such a line, this will actually appear on the board. That is, you can actually see this line on the board. So in case if you don't want it to appear, you can change it to some other options such as FFab. That is just to make sure that is just for your understanding. So using FFab is just to make sure that there is a line drawn it will not appear on the actual board. So once you draw a line, again hover over it and click on E, and then you can edit the properties of this line. Click on E, and then you can edit the properties of these line segments. For now, I have provided just like you did earlier for the paths. You can provide the start and end points for these lines, and then you can also mention what the layer type should be and how much thick it should be. So for now, change the thickness to 4 mils and keep the layer as FR, and then provide with the start and end points that I have mentioned in this picture, like what the start point should be. And how we got this was based on the datasheet information. Like E1, they have told you it's a maximum value of 2.28. That is, excluding the pins, it must have a size of 0.28, and they have mentioned the size of the pin should be zero point 0.1. So the total size would be about zero point 0.3. So based on that, I have calculated the uh, coordinates for your information so that we can be quite fast. But if you want, you can just do the math and just find out what the coordinates should be. So once you have filled out all that, create the box, that is just provide an outline with it, and I'll suggest adding another layers on these sides. So for that, I can create another line. This time make it a little bit more thick, that is, let it be 4.7 itself, and draw these two green lines, these F silk lines. This is because so that once you make the board, you will understand where the IC should end. So you'll have an idea where to keep the other components. So that is the only reason why I had placed these parts. And for those who have not worked with an IC, these IC numberings usually follow in a U shape. That is, goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it takes a U turn and then continues numbering to the top. And to know where the IC starts, it's usually like you'll be having this notch, and when you face the IC, numbering would start from the left. And to create this notch, what you should do is click this add graphic arc option, and this create an arc. You'll be able to create an arc. Just create an arc, then edit its properties, and then again provide a sender, an X sender, a Y sender, and the start points, and also the arc angle. Since we need a semicircle, just change it to 180 degree, and then once you have created it, place it again in the PPT. I have mentioned what the uh, dimensions of the arc should be. I have mentioned it here, or in this. Just follow that. The center X should be zero point 0.2 inches, center should be Y, start point should be -2. All this I have provided this in this image. Just follow the same. And then once you have created it, after that, so like I mentioned, when this all this wouldn't be visible on the PCB since we're using the FFAB option. So to make sure that the person who are handling the PCBs knows which is the first pin, what you should do is make a small circle using the F silk option. Just create a small circle at the near the pin one. Just create a small circle there using the F silk option. And so this is just for so that the person who's working with the IC would have an idea that this is the starting of the pin. That's the only reason why we are using this. So once you have finished completely creating this, once you finish creating this, Just save the file, just save it, and then come back to this. No, another thing that we should do is we should add the libraries because before we had started when we were creating the schematic, remember we had provided this battery holder and slide switch as separate uh, libraries, right? Like we had imported an external library to KiCad, so we need to import the footprints as well. So for that, we have to go to editor and click on files and click on the add library option. And then in the libraries file, that is in the libraries, yeah, we need to select the folder of the dot pretty folder. Since I had already imported it, it would not appear here. In your case, it will be mentioned. And then import the other two as well. For example, I just imported the other two. Hmm. Once you are finished doing that, come back to the EE schema. And the next step is we need to assign footprints to the schematic symbol. So I hope everyone is following until now. Can I continue? Okay. Hmm. Coming back to the EE schema, we need to now assign footprints to the schematic editor. So click on the symbol. It would take some time to load the footprints. Sorry for the inconvenience. Okay. The screen is still visible, right? Yeah. So when you assign in the assign footprints window, in your case, only some of these components would be having their footprints already assigned. For example, the DigiKey one and I think the EG1218 and the 7555, all this would have been already mentioned within the assigned footprint window itself. The other ones, they might not be mentioned already. And for assigning the footprints, you must have an idea about the components that you're working with. So for that, you must do a little bit of research. That is, for example, you can go over to any of these manufacturers, electronic components manufacturer. For now, I'm using the DigiKey website itself. There are also other manufacturers that are popular in the market. For example, Monsieur, Maxim Integrator, all these, they also provide with uh, such electronic components. So here just search for all these components that you want. For example, suppose you want capacitors, just search for it and they will provide you with a large number of options that are available. Since like I mentioned earlier, we are working with aluminum electrolytic capacitors. Click on it. I'll just provide this link in the chat box. So that you can access it quickly. You can see that they will be having a lot of filters. Like there are so many options. So to filter it, you can all this. You don't need to really check. You can select the capacitance value that you want. Since we want a 10 microfarad, just click on it and then provide it. Then apply the filters and select the stock one too, so that you can know that whether it's available or not. When you apply the filter, you can see that a large number of these are available. So just check their descriptions and all that. And what we should do is, yeah, here you can see that they have provided you whether it's surface mount and about the size, its size and dimension. All this they have provided you here. So just based on all that, select a few capacitors. I had already selected the capacitors in this case. That is, yeah, you can see here these are all the options that the KiCad provides you with. So here you can see that there are different types of capacitors. Like even within the through-hole technology, you can see that there are different types of capacitors available. That is, some of them are axial, some of them are radial, and all that. So to know the difference between an axial and a radial capacitor is that in axial, the lead pins would be along the axis. That is, it will look something like as if a cylinder has been poked on both sides. That is how a radial capacitor would look like. Whereas in radial, the uh, pins would come out on the top of the cylinder. Now here we can see that the 2 millimeter and all that. 2 millimeters would mean that it is a pin pitch radial radius is about 2, the pin pitch radius is about 2 millimeters, and the 5 that is the diameter of the capacitor. So based on that, select two of the ICs. You can right click on it and you can view the footprint. So this is how this uh, capacitor footprint would look like. So based on that, just check for these footprints, and once you are satisfied with how the footprint looks like, assign it to your components. And for the LEDs, what you should do is, here you can see the LED option through hole. LEDs, basically you don't need to check much for it. We just want a generic LED, that is common LEDs. So just make a selection based on just the diameter of the pins. So I selected the 3 millimeter ones. So it will be having a diameter of 3 millimeters. So just select one such LED. And for the resistor too, just check one. In the resistor, another thing that you should keep in mind is Another thing to keep in mind is it's the same thing as capacitors, like whether it's axial, then the radial pin pinch, and then the diameter. All these are the major classifications. Another thing is the horizontal and vertical. Horizontal would mean that we are placing the uh, resistor as in a flat shape, that is will be almost close to the that would be almost close to this substrate. So when you just view the footprint, you can see that this is how a horizontal resistor would look like. The vertical is in the sense that there wouldn't be much distance between these two pins. So usually we prefer vertical when you're working in a PCB where there isn't much space, where there is a tight component packing. That is when we use this vertical type resistors. So here we are using a really small circuit. So I think this horizontal will be just fine. So in that case, just assign all these components. And another thing to keep in mind is, although KiCad had mentioned this footprints to you beforehand, just ensure that it is already visible there. Because sometimes when KiCad would not have imported the footprints already. So in that case, click on this edit footprint library table, just click on it, and then you'll be having the options about what all libraries are currently active within your project. You can see that all by default, all the KiCad libraries are active, but you can also add your project specific libraries. So click on this project specific libraries, and you can see that I have already imported these libraries here. In your case, it would be empty. So for that, click on this folder that is to add existing libraries. Click on it, and then they'll ask you from where you need to import it. So from the 755 folder, first import the 755.pretty file. First import that one. Then after that, import the digikey footprints.pretty as well. Import those two and then click OK. Now, when you try to view the footprint, you can see that this is visible here, that the footprint that you just provided is visible here. So once you have assigned footprints, just click on apply save schematic and continue, and then close this part. And then again head back to the EE schema and click on the perform electrical rules check option. When you click on it and try to run it, you can see that sometimes they will be providing you with some warnings. For now, you can ignore the warnings. Just make sure that there is no errors listed, such as is there any wrong connection and all that. Just make sure that there is no errors. You can ignore the warnings for now. It's fine. Don't worry about that. Just ignore that. Hope everyone is following till now. I'm giving you a small 5 minutes break. So like I mentioned, some of these components they might have already specified it. Like, one second. For example, first when you make it, sometimes they might provide you with the footprints already, but just ensure that you can view the footprints. Sometimes even though they have specified it, it might look empty. It would be empty. So that is the case where you have to make sure that all the specific uh, project libraries are already active, and for all the other components, you have to manually provide it. For example, for all the resistors, you have to again choose resistors and manually add the footprints for each and every component. You have to do that manually. I hope that clears it out.
Hello, Chechi. Could you actually share the entire file to us so that we could give it to the participants? One of the
As in the
participants just asked us. Yeah.
sure, one second. One minute, I'll share it right now. Sorry for the delay.
Chechi, if it's too time consuming, then we could wait till the end.
I want to right now. 1 minute. I have to
Okay,
just
fine.
compress the file. That's it.
Okay.
Anshu has shared it in your WhatsApp. Could you share it with the participants then?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, Chechi. I'll be sure. Thank you. You may continue.
Yeah, continue. I hope my screen is visible to everyone. So, yeah, coming back to the EE schema. So, right now, what we did was we had assigned the footprints to all these components. Now, next, what we should do is we must generate the netlist. So, for that, click on the generate netlist option. Then This pop-up window will appear. Don't change anything, just click on Generate Netlist option and they'll ask you to share this netlist file somewhere within your project. So again, select the 7555 folder and then just save that net.file there. Just after that, now after that, what we should do is come back to the project manager. That is this file, this part. Come back here and then click on tools and select edit PCB option. So I had already made the PCB earlier, so as a result, you can see it here, but in your case, it will be a blank screen. So here what we should do is we must first import the netlist that we had created. So for that, click the load netlist option and they'll ask you to select the netlist. So take the directory option and then click on the .NET file that you had just saved. Click it, then after you select that file, select the update PCB option and then you can see that something similar to this will appear on your screen. That is, the all those components will be jumbled up and they will be connected with these thin yellow lines. And these yellow lines are actually called air wires, and these air wires will be converting them into tracks. And another thing to keep in mind is a collection of air wires are generally called as a rat's nest. Maybe because such a jumbled up appearance looks similar to that of a rat's nest. Maybe that's how the name came about. So, anyways, just keep in mind it's called airwires and the collection is called a rat's nest. Now, we must, another thing to, the next step that we must do is we must take these components apart. That is, make sure that all these components are placed in such a way that these air wires do not cross each other. I know when you're dealing with a really large circuit, it's quite impossible to make that happen. So that is the reason why, like I mentioned, we use multi-layered PCBs. So what we must do is make sure those wires cross as less as possible. So keep the components in such a way that they do not cross. So this is one configuration that I found easy to work with. I just kept the components in this way. Feel free to keep it in whatever ways that you like. Just for just keep in mind that they do not cross as less as possible. So that's the only thing you must be careful about. Otherwise, you are okay to place in whatever positions that you like. And like before, you have these hotkeys again. That is, using M, you can move a component, and using R, you can rotate a component. So once you are okay with the placement of the components, we can now start drawing the tracks. Now, drawing the tracks, you must have, there are some, what to say, not written rules. There are some things that you must keep in mind. For example, when you click on a pin, so to draw the tracks, just click on this option, this root tracks option, and then select a layer. Here on the right side, you can see that there are so many layers specified. So suppose first if you're working with the front layer, that is you're drawing the tracks on the front layer, just select this F copper layer. Front layer just means top layer and B means just means the bottom or the back layer. That's it. So just click on it and then click on some of one of these pins. When you click on a pin, you can see that those pins that are interconnected, they will be highlighted. They will turn into a bright yellow. So in that way, you can know which pin is connected to which other pin. And then another thing to keep in mind is usually these tracks, they either go in 90 degrees or 45 degrees. That is because for PCB manufacturers, their machines that are pick and place machines usually move in 90 or 45 degrees. That is the reason why these tracks will always come in either straight lines or 45 degrees. Now, when you're drawing a track, another thing that you must keep in mind, this is sort of like a rule, it's that there should be some vertical line, there should be some straight line coming out of the pin. That is a track must not enter a pin at a 45-degree angle. That is because when you're soldering the component, if it is in a 45-degree angle, it will be hard to place the solder in that point. So make sure that there is some straight line coming out of the pin. That is one thing you must keep in mind while drawing the tracks. Another thing to keep in mind is the tracks in the same layer should not cross each other. If it is in a different layer, that it is fine, such as this red and the green one crossing. Red stands for the top layer, green stands for the bottom layer. So a red line and the green line can cross each other, but the lines of the same color cannot cross each other because then it would lead to short circuit in the board. So we don't want that happening. So that is another rule to keep in mind. And another thing is, so when you're working with a board that has a very high current requirement, the power lines, that is the line connecting the VCC points, they should be thicker than the signal lines. For example, this is a power line. I know it doesn't have much difference, but there's a slight difference in it. So, uh, to know how much width a track must have based on the current it has, we need to use a PCB calculator. So, when you search for PCB calculator in Google, you can see a lot of options available. So, I just use the PCB calculator provided by Advanced Circuits. I'll just put the link in the chat box for you. So here they ask you to provide the current that is for the amount of current. Just in our case, from the data sheet, we can see that it was about 0.02 amperes. Uh, the thickness, let it remain as such, and they'll be telling you about they'll be telling you about the track widths that you must follow, and you can see that it's a really small track width that is required. And when you come back to this PCB new, you can see that already that they have mentioned a track about 9.84 mils. So you can actually use the same track width for creating the traces. So it doesn't make much of an issue. To be honest, this power traces having a thicker width becomes important. That is, you need a thicker trace for power lines only when you're dealing with currents above say 400 milliamperes. That is the only case when these track widths have to be really thick. Otherwise, you can use the default track settings itself. It wouldn't create much of an issue. So I'm just showing here how to create a different track. Suppose you require another track width, how to add that. So come to this track option, then click on it, and the drop down menu, you can see that there is an edit predefined sizes option. Click on it and such a board setup pop-up window will appear. So here, in your case, it will be blank. I had already created this 7.7 just to show an example. Just click on this plus option and provide with a new track width. Suppose say 8 mils. In KiCad, the minimum track width that is required is about 7.78 mils or something. So nothing smaller than that is supported by KiCad. So provide with the value, and you can see that there is another option here, vias. So what exactly a via? So vias are just similar through holes. They're similar to the through holes, that is, they're just holes on the board. The only difference is these are not used for putting pins or wires. They just used to simply connect the traces between the two layers. Just click OK. You can see that suppose you have to connect two pins, and there is no way you can connect the two pins without it crossing another track that is within the same layer. You won't be able to complete the track. In that case, you can add a via. In that case, half of the track would be on one layer, and the other half you can draw it on the in the bottom layer. So in that way, you can avoid crossing of the tracks. So that's the so in such occasions we can use a weir, but here we do not have that much of an. It's not that complicated this circuit, so we're not using a weir in this case. So just keep in mind that such an option is also available, and in those cases we need to drill holes on the board. So to provide the diameter and all that, that is when this weir option becomes necessary. So once you are satisfied with the tracks, with the drawing the tracks, it might take time for you guys to draw the tracks because it's quite a messy affair. So I'll give you a 10-minute break to just complete this drawing of the tracks. I hope everyone is following until now. If you have any doubt, feel free to ask. One more thing to keep in mind while drawing the tracks, for now, leave the ground connection. Do not connect the ground pins for now. We can use another technique to just fill in the ground. I'll just mention it for now. You can use a technique called copper pour to provide the what to say the grounding. That is, a copper pour is nothing but it's an area within the board which will be filled with copper, and usually what we do, that's how we provide a ground in the PCB. It's actually fine. You can also connect it with the connected using traces. You can connect the grounds using traces. There's no issue with it. Just the advantage that copper pores provide is they just reduce the emissions from the components and also makes drawing the tracks a little easier. That's the only reason why we usually use these copper pores. And for that, you have this option for this add filled zones. So to provide that, just create a box over the entire component that is like this. Ah, then a copper zone properties window will appear and they'll ask you where you want to draw the pores. So draw the pores on both the sides and click ground. You can provide the copper for any of the connection. For example, for VCC as well, you can provide the copper pore, but normally we use it just for providing grounds. So click on ground and click OK, and then just fill the entire circuit with it. Create a box around the circuit with it. And it will appear like this. So all those parts that are in the top layer, they will be covered with the copper pore. So this is what a copper pore would look like. I'm just hiding it for now. That's how we provide a copper pore. And to add for the bottom layer, again click on anywhere on the screen, and they'll ask you to change. They'll ask you which layer you want to work with. Click on the back copper layer, and then again do the same thing. And so that is how you provide a copper pore. Now here you can see that there is a yellow line surrounding the board, right? This is nothing but the edge cuts. So to, the edge cut is something that will tell the manufacturer where they must cut the board. It's actually the specification of the size of the board. So to create an edge cut, again, create. Since usually you must first create the edge cut, then provide with the copper zones. That's the order you must follow. Otherwise, it might show an error. So just first make the edge cuts, then provide with the copper pore. So yeah, that's how you provide the edge cuts. So once you finish drawing the tracks and providing the edge cuts, you can actually view your PCB. That is, you can check how your PCB would look like. So for that, you have the view option, which is the 3D viewer. So once you finish building your board, it would look something like this. So here you can see this is the battery holder. This is how the resistors would look like, and the LEDs and the transistor and all that. You can even turn it, and you can see that on the other side that there's also tracks provided. So this is what generally your PCB would look like once it is manufactured. So hope all this part is clear to you. We're not still done yet, but then we're almost 90% over. So once you reach here, pat yourself in the back because you're almost at the end of the road for creating a PCB. We just have two more steps to go and then we are finished with making our own PCB. So once you are done this, we need to generate Gerber files. So I had mentioned in the beginning about Gerber files. I hope you remember. Gerber files are not, it's just a type of file format. They were actually created by Gerber Systems Corporated, and they had developed this Gerber file formats for vector photo plotting. And then PCB manufacturers just took up this file format because it was quite similar to the file format we require for PCBs. So the Gerber files, there would be one specific file for each and every layer. So like I mentioned, we worked with the F copper layer, the back copper layer, then we had edge cuts, then the silk screen, we had worked with all these layers, right? So there would be a corresponding Gerber file for all this. So to to get that, go to the PCB new and in the file, click on plot, and then you will be having this pop-up window appear on your screen. So here you can see that I have included some of these layers. So to know what all files you must include, uh, you must check with the website of a PCB manufacturer. Suppose I just selected those layers that a PCB manufacturer called Oshpot would require. They are an international PCB manufacturers, so I just took their standards. It could vary from manufacturer to manufacturer. So before you generate the Gerber files, just make sure that you have included all those layers that your PCB manufacturer would want you to provide them. So click on plot and then they will create the Gerber plots. And you must provide with an output directory. Since I had already saved this file, they'll automatically save it there. In your case, you must provide the output directory, which should be the same project file that you had created earlier, the 7555 folder. Create all the generate all these Gerber files, and then another file that would not be included in the Gerbers but still is very important for PCB manufacturers is the drill files. So the drill file is nothing but the file that will tell the PCB manufacturer where they must drill holes on the PCB. So that is also an important file that you must generate it separately, create it, and they'll ask you certain options. Keep the default options as such, do not change anything, and give it again an output folder. Again, let the output folder be the project folder you had created. Once you generate the drill files and all that, if you want to send it to a PCB manufacturer, place all of them in one single folder and zip the file, and that's how you generate the Gerber files. So now coming back to the EE schema, once all that is done, let's come back to the EE schema and let's do the last step. That is to generate the bill of materials file. So once you click on this bill of material is quite important in the sense that once you have finished creating the board, you need to order the components to keep on the board, right? So you must have an idea about the components, that is the dimensions, specifications, and how much quantity is required and all that. So KiCad provides you with the option that they'll help you generate an Excel file which you can use. So click on this bill of materials option. So when you click on this, you can see that there are so many plugins available here. So in that, click on the form to group CSV file and then generate it. It will be generated in the same project folder, that is a 7555 folder. It will be an XML file, so you can't just access that file as such. For that, you must use the Excel, Microsoft Excel, or any other CSV such software, and then just come back and click on. And you can see that it will appear something similar to this. So here they have mentioned all the values that you have mentioned. So since it is an XML file and it's opened in this Excel, there's a small error occurs, that is they printed more than once. But again, you can see that they have mentioned all the details regarding each components, that is their value and their footprint, their description, and all that they have mentioned here. So using this, you'll be able to uh, say order the components, or you can manually create the bill of material using an Excel sheet. and with that you can order components from any of these component manufacturers like DigiKey and all that. So yeah, uh, right now we have almost finished. We're at the end of creating a PCB, so I hope you guys have an understanding. If please to ask any doubts if you have any doubts, please don't hesitate. Feel free to ask.
I guess we've reached the end of our webinar. Uh, Samyukta Chechi, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, okay. Like if
Yeah.
anyone has a
Okay.
doubt, feel free to ask. This half an hour, I thought we could use it for Q&A. If you have any doubts regarding what you've done so far, you can feel free to ask.
Yeah, the audience, if you have any doubt, may it be small or a big one, don't feel shy to ask. You can use this opportunity to ask Chechi whatever you want. Are there any doubts? Are there any doubts, audience? Or else we'll wind up. Seeing none, I think let's wind up this session. So before that, thank you, Samyukta Chechi, so much for your illuminating presence and for the effort you put in to make this event a success.
I
I'm
hope you
sure
guys
all the
enjoyed the session. Yeah.
yes, Chechi, we have enjoyed. I'm sure all the participants have benefited through this session. So, on behalf of the entire Mixed Signals Association and all the attendees, I take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to you, JG. Um,
Thank you
I
so
would
much.
also
I
like to,
really
yeah,
had so
yeah,
much fun doing this session. Yeah, yeah. I hope it benefited you guys. If you have any doubts, you can just ask. Or you have a WhatsApp group, I guess, for it. Uh,
yes, we have a WhatsApp.
so in future, if you have any doubt, like if you're working in it again, if you have any doubt, ask in that group, and you guys can forward the doubt to me. So I'll be happy to be of help.
Okay, JG, thank you so much for your kind words. I also take this opportunity to thank each and everyone present in this webinar for your cooperation and support. So with that, we wind up. Mixed Signals, if you don't know, Mixed Signals is the Electronics Association of our college, and it is a platform which is aimed to build the upcoming engineers. So Mixed Signals will be back with more such events. So stay tuned. So with that, we wind up. Thank you, everyone. Now you may leave the webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you once again, Samyukta. If you guys haven't filled the feedback form, do fill the feedback form. That would be great.